major effort is now underway in Yosemite National Park in California. A wildfire is burning out of control and threatening one of the nation's natural wonders, the park's grove of giant sequoia trees. Firefighters are using all means available to them to protect the ancient trees. Planes are dropping fire retardant. The area around the Mariposa Grove is now closed. All visitors there have been told to evacuate. Hundreds of firefighters on the ground are digging lines and clearing dead brush. The extreme drought is only fueling the fire. Crews are setting up sprinklers to protect the 3,000-year-old grizzly giant. That tree, the second tallest in the park, reaches well over 200 feet. The fire currently spans nearly 1,600 acres with hot and dry conditions expected to persist. ABC's Will Carr leads us off tonight.
Tonight, the urgent battle to save the iconic giant sequoias in Yosemite National Park from the air, planes dropping water and that bright red fire retardant. The intense flames and heat sending debris hundreds of feet into the air, reportedly causing a near miss for one plane.
A branch went right over the top of us, pretty good size. So if we keep seeing that, we might have to knock it off. I don't want to take a chance of busting a window in an airplane or hurting an aircraft.
On the ground, firefighters digging lines and clearing dead brush. The active flames of the Washburn fire captured in this aerial video. The fire scorching nearly 1,600 acres in 3 days. It's 0% contained. 360 firefighters working on the front line.
Looks pretty scary, and we're going full force on our suppression tactics.
Smoke from the fire expected to cause major problems for the surrounding area. In the middle of a busy tourist season, up to 700 people staying nearby given evacuation orders, but some choosing to stay in the area and wait it out.
Plan on staying here at the park for a few days, but I guess we'll see.
Park officials say the fire sparked Thursday, fueled by extreme drought.
Kind of heartbreaking. You feel afraid for the people in the town of Wawona, and then just heartbroken about the trees.
Fire crews desperately trying to protect Mariposa Grove, the largest area of ancient sequoias in Yosemite. The sprinkler system increasing humidity in the area around the 209-foot-tall grizzly giant, the second largest tree in Yosemite.
Lots of concern about those trees. Will Carr joins us now. And Will, we know that the extreme heat and drought are fueling the flames. What are you learning about the conditions heading into the work week?
That's right, Lindsay. While crews are racing to save those sequoias, it's going to be hot and dry across this region this week. We are still in the middle of a mega drought, and veteran firefighters tell me it's going to be a long fire season.
The Washburn fire began in Yosemite National Park on Thursday. Officials say the fire threatens some 500 sequoia trees in an area called Mariposa Grove, and that includes the famous grizzly giant.
It's some of the oldest trees that there are. There's trees that are 2,000 years old. They're massive giants when you stand next to them.
As firefighters moved in, some 1,600 people at a nearby campground and community were told to leave. So far, the Washburn fire has burned more than 280 hectares. Park officials say they could close more of the national park if necessary.
It looks pretty scary, and we're going full force on our suppression tactics.
For now, visitors are cautiously proceeding with their vacations.
It's definitely eerie, but it doesn't make me want to turn around. I want to keep going.
Sequoias have evolved to withstand fire, but they don't always escape. Wildfires in the last 2 years have destroyed nearly 15,000 sequoias, 20% of the 75,000 estimated trees found in the American West. So far, park officials don't know when the Washburn fire will be brought under control. Rosalind Jordan, Al Jazeera.
Exploding in size again overnight, Yosemite's Washburn fire is quickly sweeping through the national park as more than 500 firefighters lose ground against the out-of-control blaze.
Just trying to keep the fire from climbing the trees.
Torching forest land and fueled by millions of trees, flames now flank the 600 massive and iconic sequoias inside the park, a national treasure under serious threat.
They're incredibly fire resilient. It's just the fire is so different right now.
Biologist Garrett Dickman says Yosemite and California has never seen infernos like these. Mega fires fueled by extreme drought, the new normal, incinerating trees that withstood flames for thousands of years.
We've lost 20% of all giant sequoias on Earth in the past two years alone. So, I mean, at this point, every tree counts.
Climate change is playing a role in how these fires burn. They're now hotter, faster, and more explosive than ever before.
Those dangerous conditions creating their own weather system on the ground. The fire's powerful updraft launching tree limbs hundreds of feet into the sky, narrowly missing firefighting aircraft.
The top of us.
Tracking the fast-moving blaze from above,
fire's edge is active.
The outer rim of the swirling inferno has forced the closure of Yosemite's popular south entrance, triggering 1,600 evacuations.
The smoke was overwhelming. By the time we got down into Yosemite Valley, ash was raining down on us.
Inside Yosemite's famed Mariposa Grove, where protected sequoias are more than 2,000 years old and over 300 feet high.
I'm standing right in front of the grizzly giant.
A simple sprinkler system is keeping soil wet around the grizzly giant, arguably the world's most famous tree. Protective foil now also wraps the historic Galen Clark cabin, but flames are within striking distance.
Crews are lining every hillside they can, but this fire is quickly racing from tree to tree. In some areas, they're simply going to let it burn.
Tonight, that burn destroying everything in its path and still threatening to uproot these iconic natural wonders that have stood tall for generations.
Miguel joining me now. Miguel, protecting the massive sequoias, I know, is a major feat tonight. The outlook on that seems to be good.
Yeah, that's right, Lester. Incredibly, not a single sequoia has been touched by fire yet. It's an incredible feat. I want to give you some perspective on just how massive these trees are. Let me turn to our second camera here that's a few hundred feet away. There are 600 of these majestic beauties across the valley floor. Not one has been lost to this fire yet. Now, the blaze is roughly 25% contained. It remains an active threat tonight, so by no means are we out of the woods. Firefighters, though, here on the ground doing an incredible job. Lester.
Khalil Hatem is standing in what was once the middle of the Khabur River, the biggest tributary of the Euphrates in Syria. For centuries, people in the northeastern region of Hasaka have depended on it for their livelihoods. But that's a thing of the past, says the farmer.
There is no water because it was cut off from Turkey. They put dams on the river and cut off supplies. And they closed the springs and dug wells around the springs and put dams. So the Khabur waters were cut off.
The drought is worsening the impact of dams built on the Turkish side of the border. Until recently, wheat, cotton, barley, rice were grown in the Khabur River Valley. Another farmer says underground water reserves are also affected.
Today we are suffering because there is no water. Even the level of wells has gone down. The people who used to live off the Khabur River have reached a new level of poverty. There is nothing.
Muhammad Hamza adds that the shallow water is undrinkable.
Animals and people used to drink water from the Khabur, but now we don't even let sheep drink the water because they get sick immediately.
Working the land is the only way of life these farmers know.
The drought has hit us hard. We don't even plant anymore. When we do, the crops die. We plant seeds on both sides of the river and we take losses. You know how much agriculture costs these days. Or if God has mercy on us and gives us rain, we water the crops twice and then they die.
Syria has been devastated by civil war since 2011. The fighting has forced people from their homes. Now the drought is denting the resolve of those who have stayed against all odds.
This is what Italy's longest and most important river, the Po, looks like right now, parched and at dangerously low levels. Its water provides the lifeblood for farmers who produce Italy's most valuable crops. Walking through his field of stunted corn, farmer Adriano Tugnolo, the son and grandson of corn growers, shows us the damage wrought by the drought.
This year, this corn will just be thrown away, all because of the drought, because it hasn't rained in months. This year is totally ruined.
Downriver, where the Po empties into the Adriatic, engineer Rodolfo Laurenti shows us how the current is running in reverse, from the sea to the land, because the river is so low. Looking over maps, he shows me how salt water is entering nearby farmland. Laurenti says saltwater barriers are failing because they weren't built for such dangerously low river levels. He regularly monitors the salt levels in the river. He has never seen it this bad.
It's now registering 25 grams per litre. That means it's seawater, salt water. The level here should be 1 gram per litre to be able to distribute to farmers.
And the effect of so much saltwater incursion? Burnt crops, worthless and withering in the field. Many fields poisoned by saltwater may not even produce crops next year. It's not just a problem for agriculture. Mussel farmer Paolo Manchin says he'll lose 30% of his harvest from this lagoon on the Po Delta this year.
These mussels are all dead. Fresh water from the Po hasn't made it here, so they just die.
Scenes like this are increasingly common along the Po. Whole areas usually covered by water, now exposed, turned into beaches or islands of sand in the middle of where the river usually flows. And those who provide water to farmers in the Po Valley say they're not just worried about this summer's crops, but about years to come.
A once-in-a-lifetime drought shows how life could change here forever.
If we lose this resource we have had for centuries, we'll have to abandon our excellent crops. We'd give up our whole cultural heritage.
A frightening prospect.
Tonight, wildfires are ripping through Europe and parts of northern Africa. In Spain, 17 fires are raging across the country, and thousands are frantically fleeing their homes. This woman saying she's devastated. So far, nearly 400 people have died from the extreme heat as temperatures hit 114 degrees. It's a desperate effort for first responders, working quickly to save lives and homes as neighbors rush to evacuate.
Once you can feel the intensity of the heat and the wind, that's it.
A similar scene in France, where fires are intensifying. 25,000 acres are burning near the famed wine region of Bordeaux. Bonjour. Police going door to door, getting residents out before it's too late. So far, the country's seeing some 12,000 evacuations. The deadly heat wave that's gripping Europe comes at the height of the summer tourist season. In the United Kingdom, a crisis situation in a country where most live without air conditioning. Government officials holding an emergency meeting today.
Hello, it's Friday, the 22nd of July, 2050.
2 years ago, the UK's National Weather Agency put out this forecast to warn about climate change.
Much of England and Wales, highs will be around 40 Celsius.
That eerie prediction is set to come true nearly 3 decades early. The UK is set to hit 40 degrees Celsius, which is 104 degrees Fahrenheit, this coming week. Jose.
Climate change are not fake news. They are here, they are for real, and we need to really change our mindset and prepare ourselves for these new kind of events. Heat waves will become more and more frequent, and we do need to prepare not only in terms of the way we do policies, but also the way we teach people how to deal with this kind of events.
Essa casa que é minha, tenho ali a casa dos meus filhos, ele não está.
A searing summer heat wave, bringing record-breaking temperatures to much of Europe and sparking wildfires across the continent. In France, thousands of people have been forced to evacuate as wildfires in the country's southwest rage out of control. More than 7,000 hectares have been destroyed, with residents describing the scene as post-apocalyptic. This evacuation center in Gironde serving as a refuge for residents.
We have received almost 500 offers of accommodation from the inhabitants in the surrounding area. It's an exceptional movement of solidarity.
In Spain, temperatures have been topping 40 degrees Celsius for several days. Emergency centers in the capital of Madrid are seeing an increase of colds.
We see many people who do not have the money to keep their houses cool due to the energy crisis we are having. Some don't even have adequate air conditioning, which is a very big issue at this time of the year. There are houses you enter and you think, how can they stand to be here for even 5 minutes?
The ongoing drought in Portugal and Spain provides ideal conditions for wildfires to spread. The city of Seville has become the first in the world to take part in a pilot program to categorize heat waves in an effort to save lives.
Climate-driven extreme heat is killing more people than any other of the climate-driven hazards. And heat is invisible, it is silent, and it kills slowly, and people are not aware of it.
And for the first time, the UK has issued a heat red alert, warning of a surge in heat-related hospital admissions. Record temperatures are putting even healthy people at risk of serious illness and death. The heat wave is expected to continue well into next week.
From the northwest to the south, Spaniards are sweltering. In the Andalusia region, the mercury soared to 45.6 degrees Celsius on Wednesday. The government is warning people to be cautious and avoid going outdoors unless absolutely necessary.
With so much heat, people don't leave their homes so early, so there are no customers until later in the day.
This is the second heat wave in Western Europe in a matter of weeks. Forest fires are burning near the border with Portugal and northwest of Madrid, where hundreds of residents have had to leave their homes. France and Portugal are also battling wildfires, and at least one person has died. There is a drought in Spain. Water reserves have shrunk more than 20% this year.
We say to ourselves, but how are we going to end up? Either we see a lack of water or a desert.
It's not so much for us, but for our children and grandchildren.
The conditions have made it impossible for barley and wheat farmers to take full advantage of the rising cost of cereals.
There would be a loss of 30 to 40%, and in some areas of the province of Lleida, we're talking about 60, 70, 80% loss.
Meteorologists say climate change is making both drought and heat waves more frequent. Spaniards aren't expected to get much relief from the high temperatures until Sunday.
Massive flooding in rural Virginia has left communities destroyed, washing away more than 100 homes.
It's really sad because, people's lost everything.
It happened in the southwest part of the state at the foot of the Appalachian Mountains. Overnight storms deluged the area and caused landslides and power outages. When the waters receded, homes were destroyed and dozens of people were unaccounted for. But officials searched and were successful in finding every one of them.
Today, we are happy to report that 0 people are unaccounted for in the impact area.
Remarkably, officials say only one person was injured in the flood from a snake bite. It's a bit of good news amid a massive and devastating event that will take many years from which to recover.
After a terrifying night of water rescues and landslides, today a sigh of relief in Southwest Virginia.
We are happy to report that 0 people are unaccounted for in the impact area.
Several inches of rain came pouring down in a matter of hours. Extreme flash flooding in Buchanan County cut off roads and even stranded drivers at the height of Tuesday night's storm.
We got a car here with 2 people in it, in the water. Their car's going underwater and they can't get out of the car.
The rushing waters pushed homes off foundations.
Post office over here. Next thing you know, Aston, it's floating on down through there. We thought it was going to wash off. 2 houses back there washed off.
Even cars were no match against the ferocious floods.
It was just horrendous. The sky just opened up, and there it was.
Officials initially reported dozens of people who they couldn't track down, staying hopeful all were still alive, but possibly hampered by power outages and the lack of cell service.
This was a monumental search effort. We covered approximately 30 road miles worth of areas and about 400 structures.
After a crushing blow from Mother Nature, this community is now picking up the pieces and grateful everyone is alive.
And Tom, officials say that they will be out here tomorrow to assess the damage, but you can already see how extensive it is. There is debris just about everywhere. It's a muddy mess at every turn, and the floodwaters were so intense at times. Some of these tree limbs actually got pushed right onto this bridge. Now, many folks say that this will be a long road to recovery because they're still reeling from a separate storm that struck last year in neighboring Hurley, Virginia.
Let's start with NBC News correspondent Kathy Park. She's joining us from Buchanan County, Virginia, and Southwest Virginia, where flash flooding washed out some roads. A lot of homes damaged there, too. Kathy, talk to us about what conditions are like where you are today and what people there are telling you about what they've lived through.
Yeah, so Aaron, good afternoon to you. So it was certainly a terrifying night of flash floods, extreme flooding, in fact, and there were water rescues and landslides as well. But as you can see, it's a much different scene at this hour. The water is starting to recede and the cleanup is starting to begin. And really the big headline from this afternoon is that everyone has been accounted for. And that's pretty extraordinary because even as of this morning, it was assumed that potentially there were still many people who may be stranded in their homes. So this was a multi-agency effort, and officials say that they pretty much combed through a 30-mile zone. They went door to door, knocked on roughly 400 structures, and they were able to make sure that everyone was found alive. But keep in mind, the storm came in pretty quickly, and the rain came down hard. We're told that this area was pounded with several inches of rain in just a matter of hours, and that left a path of destruction. We were in the community that was hardest hit, and we saw some homes that were pushed off its foundation. It really is just a muddy mess everywhere you go, and there is certainly a long road to recovery. Aaron, we should point out that this community is still reeling from a major storm from last year in neighboring Hurley, so they're saying that really the recovery efforts will be pretty lengthy. Aaron?
All right, Kathy Park for us in Southwest Virginia today. Kathy, thank you.
Since his rise to head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis's papacy has been nothing short of transformative. Redefining the role from day one, wearing white at his inaugural Mass, not gold like his predecessor, and readily greeting crowds in an open-top Jeep, even stopping to bless a man. Since then, Francis has spoken out on topics usually avoided by sitting pontiffs, like divorce, gender equality, even gay rights. But no issue has captured his attention more than the dire fate of our warming planet.
Now is the time
for courageous action and strategies.
In 2015, he published a sweeping encyclical, an open letter to the church, the first by a pope to focus on climate change, writing it represents one of the principal challenges facing humanity in our day. British ambassador to the Vatican Chris Drought says Francis's passion for the environment is rooted in his faith.
The role that Pope Francis is playing on this issue has been historic. How so?
He sees that he has a kind of a moral voice that he can use and should use to influence global politics. So he thinks that climate is a critical issue for the whole of humankind right now.
You are the most significant warrior for peace I've ever met.
Mr. Biden, one of only 2 Roman Catholic presidents alongside JFK, is promising progress on climate issues after what many at the Vatican saw as a step backward under former President Trump.
We are going to bring back your coal industry.
The big question now, whether Pope Francis can inspire other major powers and polluters to deliver on their climate commitments.
What legacy do you think he hopes to have on the issue of the environment and climate?
I think that for Pope Francis, setting the globe onto the right track where we address the climate properly and don't actually spoil the planet for our grandchildren is his key hope.
Just a part of our conversation overlooking Vatican City there. Pope Francis in that new urgent warning to world leaders saying that humanity has never before had so many means for achieving its goal of healing the planet, adding that each of us can play a part in stopping what he calls the degradation of our common home. Kristen and Joe.